Hey, everybody, we're live for this special summit session with Coach David Sammel. I really appreciate David coming on. He has been a tour coach for 35 years, at least, I think, including coaching Liam Brody, great player, and many others. He is obviously tennis coach and also a sports consultant and writer. And since 2010, David has been the head coach at Team Bath and the author of the book, Locker Room Power, Building an Athlete's Mind. So it's really great to have David on the summit, especially being, a newer coach to the summit. So David, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it. And
yeah,
hopefully people can get a few little nuggets from me.
Oh yeah, I'm very sure. I mean, with your extensive experience coaching and all your great work, really excited to hear you speak about the mental game because as we know and as it's been further illuminated in other sessions too, like the mindset is everything. I had a live stream with Gigi Fernandez and she mentioned that the key to her winning all those grand slams was actually practicing meditation and getting her focus in the right path. And so super powerful. People forget, the mindset has even been why I've been hitting better second serves. So it's really, it really permeates a lot of things. So David, I really am excited for this one and excited for your presentation.
Cool. Ready to go when you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I just changed the view so that now we're seeing your presentation and the two of us on the left. So we're good to go.
Great. Right. So as you can see here, the heading of my presentation is Control Nerves, Build Confidence, and Play Freely. And, when you talk about mindset, you never hear somebody saying, put your body to it and you can accomplish anything. It's put your mind to it and you can accomplish anything. So I think, that saying alone tells you that everything ultimately is driven by the mind, and even, how fit you become, how strong you become as a player is driven by a mental desire to do so. But what I'm going to go through here is some mental tools that can help players and help coaches to get some messages across to help something that every player experiences, which is, controlling nerves. And I've left it as control nerves, but really and truthfully, you can't control your nerves. You can manage them, which we then say you are controlling your nerves, if that makes sense. So just before we get into it is why listen to me. So I'm going to play a video here of Marcus Daniel, who actually won a bronze medal at the Olympics, quarterfinals of 4 slams, not all 4 different, twice in Australia and Wimbledon, and see what he has to say.
My coach, like my main coach, since I first met him, and through those moves away from where he's based and where he does most of his coaching, and he's still the first person I turn to for advice. So yeah, the change has been from a person I saw daily and worked with for hours and hours a day to more of a mentor when he's not on the road with me, someone I call and talk to when I have emotional problems, mental problems, and then when I'm lucky enough to have him on tour with me, then we really get stuck into the tennis side of things. But yeah, I still feel a huge benefit just from having him as a touchstone, as a reference point to me and someone who I know will always be unfailingly, brutally, often painfully honest. And I've grown to appreciate that more and more as I've got higher up the rankings, because it seems the higher up you go, the more bullshit you get fed, and people trying to sort of attach themselves to you, and he won't take any of that at any level, and it's something I really respect. So yeah, there has been a big change since I first met him. He's remained the same, and he's had the same attitude towards me and the same attitude towards life, and it's it's a pleasure to have someone as a rock like that in a career that involves so much chaos.
Thank you, Marcus.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
Also, this is a two-way thing. If there's any questions, put them in the chat and everything, and I'm happy to answer them as we go along. But there are 9 ways that you can help players, and coaches, please never underestimate communication as the pathway to helping players. Roger Federer explains the importance of really listening to people that you trust, and as a coach, a big part of your job is to earn the trust of a player, and this is what Roger has to say about it.
I think learning quickly, understanding what you've been told, because in a message you can always pick the things you like and then apply them, even if it's wrong. You think like, well, that's how I understood it. So understanding the message correctly, I think, is a key element to improve, and also maybe sometimes questioning, the person who's telling you the things, so you really understand what they mean. And then I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, old school work ethic. There's nothing wrong with that. I do believe if you're in a slump, you're not feeling well, whatever it may be, knowing how to train hard, when to train hard, with who to train hard. There's nothing wrong when it goes to those things. And learning from your mistakes is key. As we remember our losses more than our wins, it's just important that when you do lose, you really make the most of it, because it's actually an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to talk about the foundation for mindset. Now, I break it down into 2 mindsets. There's a learning mindset and there's a competitive mindset. So when you're practicing as a player, or you're monitoring a practice of players, the session has to be either a learning session or a competitive session. And if you're in a learning session, you're maybe learning how to, polish up technique, or you're learning some kind of tactics, or you're learning how to get better repetition going. But the mindset is all about being open and not afraid to make mistakes, not afraid to try out things, and to not worry about consequences. The competitive mindset is obviously a match mindset. So even in practice, if you set up an 11s up and playing first to 11, and you say to the players, okay, this is a learning 11s up. In other words, you're going to try go to the net as much as possible in this 11s up, and don't worry really about, you want to compete as hard as you can, but you're trying to learn how to do something. So the result is irrelevant. Or you're saying, this is a competitive 11s up. You do whatever you can to win. And, if you're helping players to say, come to the net more, you only know that it's working when you start to see it in match play. But they can't be in match play if it's a competitive match where winning is important. They've got to be in a competitive mindset, and therefore whatever they've got on the day is what they've got. And if they're not ready to come to the net more in that match, they're not going to. And because it's a competitive match, it's okay. But if you say, look, this tournament doesn't really matter, go in there with a learning mindset. You want to try go to the net a lot. And, if you do well in the tournament, great. And if you don't, too bad. You've at least learning how to get forward more. And I remember watching Alcaraz at Queens in the first round, and he managed to beat Rinderknecht from two match points down. And I remember thinking then, wow, this guy's planning to win Wimbledon, not this year, but the year after. And he's laying the foundations here. He's playing these matches, this match and the second round as well. He kind of got out of jail to improve his game with a learning mindset to learn how to play well in grass. But he got through those 2 matches, and by the end of the week, he had won Queens, and the confidence he had learned so fast that when he went into competitive mindset at Wimbledon, he was able to win Wimbledon, a year early, I believe, in my mind. I don't think that was the intention. It was meant to be a learning year, but he learned so fast that once he was in competitive mindset, he was able to, win Wimbledon. So, number 2, understand foundational stats of tennis. Now, I'm sure you've heard a lot about stats, but the number 1 in the world wins on average 54 to 55% points in the year. So, players, of a decent level are very rarely winning, more than 50, 51% of their points. And here's the second point is really important for players to understand. Your ranking goes forward through winning streaks, which is 3 or more matches in a row. So you'll see a lot of players that are ranked maybe 45 in the world, but they might even have like a 49% win-loss ratio. But the reason they're there is because they have 5 or 6 tournaments a year where they make final or win or semis. And when you get 3 or more matches in a row under your belt, the points are so much bigger. And that's where you move. So as an example, if you were in the finals of Junior Australian Open at the beginning of the year and won it, you'd have, your 2,000 points. If you didn't win another match the whole year and you were like 6 and 20 on the year, 20 losses, 6 wins, you'd still be ranked in the top 10 in the world because your winning streak was at a major, which is just gives you an example of how important winning streaks are. The other thing to remember is close to 90% of the points that a player loses is off their own racket. Because at the end of the day, unless you hit a winner, even if you're on the stretch, if you put a racket on it and miss the ball, it's off your racket. And if you just make an unforced error or forced error, it's off your racket. So missing and losing are unavoidable. And accepting that is so important to the mindset, which is, I understand the sport. It's a sport where you miss a lot. It's a sport where you lose a lot. And I accept that as part of the sport, and I don't rage against it and try to pretend that it's different. So here's what Liam had to say about some of this.
I think 3 of the things that Dave brings to the table off the top of my head, one would be experience, of course. He's been in this line of work for many, many years now, and there aren't many people in the world of tennis that I would trust with my career. So number 1 would be experience. I'd say secondly would be a stability. He's a very calming presence. So whenever I feel like things are going wrong, or I'm feeling stressed out or a little bit insecure or lacking confidence, he's always there to be a steadying presence and to relax me and keep me calm. And thirdly, I'd say he's himself. He's a very, very hardworking individual. He looks to cover all the ground that he has to, and I mean, pretty impressive for me for someone who is as experienced as him. Is he's always looking to learn and to improve at what he's doing.
So I think that's important, that if you're asking your players as a coach to have a learning mindset, you have to have one as well. So the third thing that you want is competence and the team that tell you the truth, which you've heard already. In this journey, you do the work to get better. And if you do that, good things will happen. You just never know when. And I think so many players and coaches get frustrated and upset because they've been working really hard and nothing seems to be happening. And this is where the word perseverance comes from, is keep persevering, keep your resilience, because at some point it will break and something good will happen. And, you know, human beings just want to make things happen when they want it. And, you know, unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. Usually there's a delay, and a longer delay than we're comfortable with, which is, we want that immediate reward. You know, I've done a 6-week training block. I'm all ready to go. And, 2 months in, I've still not had a winning streak. It was all a waste of time. No, trust that you keep doing the work and good things will happen. And this next sentence, tennis is not all mindset except when it is. And what I mean by this is you have to be a very good tennis player. So becoming good at tennis and competent at what you do is really, really important. So it wouldn't matter how mentally tough you were if your game was very poor. You would be the best of all the people with very little to their game. So at every level, it's the mindset that wins. But you can't be a beginner and beat a pro just because you're amazing in the mind. You have to have the competence as well. And I think sometimes, I get clients where, the parents will say it's, all in their mind. They don't have enough confidence, they don't have enough belief. Well, one of the reasons they don't have enough belief is because their game is not good enough. And I liken that to the gym. If you know you have to squat, 150 pounds or kilos, whatever you want to call it, and you've got the capability of squatting 50, and you just come in every day and put 150 on the rack and go, mentally, I'm strong, I can do this, you'll never get there. You have to train and work hard and go up incrementally. But by the time you get to 130, 135 kilos or pounds, you'd be very confident and have a lot of belief that you're going to make that 150 because your competence is such that it's kind of the next step. So I hope that helps. Number 4, being brave is essential. And it's easier when you know why. So I always say this, that the best are the most relaxed and the bravest. But also, they have something which they know and which has improved their focus so much, is because if you think about it, and this is a stat that will really help, if you're winning 50% of your points and you're number 50 in the world, how many more points per 100 over the course of a year would you have to win in order to be top 10? Now, normally I wait for answers to this, and generally the answers I get is, 5 to 10. The reality is just 1. And why is that? Because if you win 50% of your points, you got a 50% chance of winning the match. If you win 51% of your points, you got a 75% chance of winning the match. So if you win 1 more point per 100, that's going to have a massive effect on your ranking. Well, someone like Rafa Nadal really understood this. So even if he was losing 6-2, 5-2, he's still fighting for every single point because he knows ultimately over the course of the year, every point is golden. You've got to really work to win as many points as you can, even if you're losing badly, because ultimately it's going to count towards that percentage of points that you're winning out of 100. And I think that can help players really focus when they understand, why every point is so important. And the being brave I'm talking about here is to be brave enough to keep trying and working hard to win points no matter what the score. So number 5, get rid of the myth of controlling emotions. I said this earlier. And at the end of this, I've got a QR code that you can freely get the 4-step reset, which will help you in understanding this. But ultimately, you can't control emotions. If somebody drops a brick on my foot, I'm not going to go, I wonder why she did that. Was she annoyed? Was it an accident? No, the first thing that's coming out of my mind is like, or some expletive. And, what the hell is going on here? And then you maybe can create a space to think about it and then see that actually it was an accident and it wasn't meant. So when you miss a set point with an easy volley, the emotion of disappointment or a bit of panic or whatever is just going to come up. But you've got 20 seconds between that emotion hitting you and resetting and getting ready for the next point. And that's why I call it the 4-step reset. And the better you get at this, the better you learn to trust in your ability to reset. The best players in the world are much more relaxed because they know whatever is thrown their way, they can cope. And that gives a lot of confidence. So they build a lot of their confidence on their resilience, not just because they're very good tennis players. And as a coach or parent, you really want to reinforce this idea that the better you can cope with adversity, the more confidence you can have, because that is how you learn how to just get through things.
We need tools to teach players the enormity and the size, the true size of this journey. The reality is, for most players at the age of 12, it's probably going to be 10 years before they even know whether they have a chance of making a living at the game as a pro. It is a long, long haul for both the parents, the coaches, and the players.
So, really and truthfully, I mean, when I first started with Liam Brody, he was 20 years old, and very quickly I got him from 300 to 150 in the world. And at that stage, at that age, he was number 4 in the world for his age. And when I say, it's a long haul, nobody would have guessed at that point, including myself, that would take 8.5 years for him to make top 100 from that point. I mean, there's various reasons for it to happen and everything like that. But at the end of the day, that's how long it took. And when I said, be patient and just do the work and good things will happen, that's serious patience. Adaptive and curious competing. I think it's really important for players to remain curious, and I think this really really helps. So as an example, when Nadal played Medvedev at the Australian Open in his 2-sets-to-love down, I don't think he was sitting on the court there going, wow, it's looking good today. I can still do this. I think more, and knowing a lot about him, is he would have sat there and gone, it's not looking good. But you know what? I'll just hang in and hold serve and see what happens. And of course, he ended up, coming from love 40 on one of his service games, holding on there, and eventually winning that match in 5 sets. And the same thing is when he played Fed. Somebody in the press asked him after the match when he had lost 2 match points in the 4th set and went on to win it, that 12-10 or whatever it was in the 10-8 in the 5th. And they said, how did you feel on the changeover after you'd blown the match in the 4th set? How did you, cope with that and still come back to win? He said, well, are you crazy, to be upset? If you work your whole life and somebody said you only have one set to win Wimbledon, come on. The opportunity was still so big. And then he said a little beauty. He said, and I thought to myself, get to 3-3 and maybe Roger gets nervous. So, he kind of made it into a little game for himself. Is the opportunity is still big and just a small target. Let's get to 3-3 and then see what happens. And I think it's really important that players, if they're losing badly, say, well, okay, I wonder what would happen if I, serve and volleyed 2 points a game. Or I wonder what would happen if I just started, hitting a lot of high balls. Or I wonder what would happen if I started slicing more. So you have this curiosity, because so often you see players losing and they just carry on doing the same thing over and over again. There's no curiosity there. Because if they're curious, even if, and probably most likely they carry on and go on to lose, but still they will find out more things about their game. They'll find out more things about their opponent if they remain curious about what changes due to their opponents. And then the one thing to help coaches and parents here is, at Bath and at all the academies where I've headed, I've only had one rule, and it was called the 5-minute rule. And the 5-minute rule is simply this: if a player is not motivated or comes and is in a bad mood and just not putting out and really kind of disturbing the group a little bit, I'd set it up, and every player would know this, that you send them off the court for a minimum of 5 minutes. But here's the kicker. I would say to them, a minimum of 5 minutes, but come back when you're ready. So if that's a half an hour, 10 minutes, or if it's tomorrow, that's fine. But you choose when you come back. And when you come back, that means you're ready to play. You're ready to put out a game. And only once in my career I've had a player come back on court and have to be sent off a game for a minimum of 5 minutes. The big thing is the choice. And when they come back to the court, whether it's the next day or 30 minutes later, they just get reintegrated without any talk, any, I hope you've learned your lesson or any of that. They just get reintegrated freely and nothing is said about it. And the other thing I would tell, parents, coaches, and players is have this idea that it's chicken for dinner. In other words, win, lose, play badly, play well, think it's chicken for dinner. And in this, I mean, is like, if you play a really good match, you occasionally maybe can give yourself a reward with like ice cream after dinner or something like that. But don't make it such a big deal when you win a really good match, and such a terrible deal if you lose. It's not no dinner if you lose, or a lesser dinner if you lose. So, those two things I think are very helpful. The dangers of both positive and negative emotions in the present. So I think so often I get this with players is they either overestimate or underestimate opponents. And both of them are really, really negative. Because if you underestimate an opponent, you're basically saying, I can come to the court today, they're not that good, I don't have to play my hardest. I can get away with being a little bit less. And that is a terrible habit to learn. Because even if you win cruising, when you could have actually won, 1-1 if you really step on it, and you win 4-4 cruising, you're teaching yourself to not bring your best to the court every single time. So, even if you're better and really confident, you don't want to underestimate opponents. And overestimating opponents is basically saying that I know what's happening in my opponent's head, I know what's happening in their life, and I'm going to be playing the best version of them. And I, often would say to players I work with, don't play the guy that you've seen on TV in a final. You're playing him first round. He's not going to be, there's more than likely he's not going to be that guy. Play the guy or the girl on the day. See what they bring on the day. You don't know if their dog died the day before, whether they broke up with their girlfriend or boyfriend, or, they've had an argument with their parents, or, they're doing badly in school and they're coming and they're distracted. So, if you overestimate opponents, you basically say, I know in my head exactly how good they are. And the other thing is how good I'm going to be today, because some days you're better than others, and you're same with your opponents. So get rid of either underestimating or overestimating opponents. Just go there and play your hardest every time. And I think that's a very, very good lesson to learn. Number 9, not everything's going to work out. And, you practice hard, you do all the right things, and very often, and in a sport like tennis, so often things don't work out the way you want it. And, it's also important for players to accept doubt as normal. And in a way, it's a positive thing, because if you had no doubt, then you're not playing the right level of competition. You can't be coming to the court and say, I know for sure I'm going to win. You can have an inkling that you're going to win, but if you know that and you win with no doubt, you're not playing the right level. You're not really in the game. And I think sometimes players have a fear of having fear. And again, fear is normal sometimes, but then you want to think about, how do I deal with my fear? So I always give this example. I remember that when the Pepsi Max, which is a roller coaster in the UK, first opened, at the time when it opened, I mean, I'm talking probably 30 years ago, it was the highest roller coaster in the world. And I'm in line to get on this thing. I mean, it's a ridiculous line. And I'm thinking, looking at it, and I'm not great with heights, and do I really want to do this? And, I'm starting to get pretty afraid. I'm getting near to the front, and I'm like, maybe I should just step out. And then I thought, hold on a second. And I looked around at the line, and I'm looking at different people, younger, older, all shapes and sizes. And I thought, if I step out of here, I'm willing to admit that I'm mentally weaker than everybody in this line. Am I willing to accept that? And the moment I thought that, I was like, no. So even though I'm afraid, I'm certainly mentally strong enough to deal with this roller coaster, because others are. And so, it's not about not having fear, because all fears tend to be rational. If I say to people, put up your hands, who wants to be bitten by a shark? Anybody? And no hands go up. So fear of sharks is logical. But the idea that every time you go in the water, there's a good chance of being attacked by a shark is not rational. So sometimes with fears, just write them down and put them in the right box. So what I mean by that is, if you're afraid of being bitten by a shark, which is normal, but when you go in the sea, you're just terrified all the time because you think you're going to get bitten by a shark, that fear is in the wrong box. The right box is in a box that says, this belongs further away than having an accident in a car or in an airplane. It is so far removed, it needs to be in the box of remote. And when I go and drive my car, or I go and sit in a car, I'm not thinking, oh my God, I'm so terrified of this. Because it's in a box that says, yes, it can be dangerous, but it's highly unlikely. And the shark one is in a box even further away from that. So you can start to try and put a rational part around the fear and put it in the right box, if that makes sense. And the other thing is what I call orange pills. And this goes back to learning. So if you've got these fears and everything like that, or, and you go and play a match and you don't overcome them properly, and you come out and you've lost, think of it as that you now have an orange in your hand, and you need to get the data and you need to get the learning from this match out of this orange. And the learning is the juice out of the orange. So you cut a hole in it and you squeeze the orange and you suck out all the juice, all the learning. Now, the big thing is, don't put this orange peel in a backpack on your back, because you're going to learn so many lessons, and eventually that backpack will be so heavy with orange peels, you'll have all this knowledge, but you won't be able to walk. So it's really important to get the knowledge from each loss, as Roger said. But once you got the knowledge, okay, it's biodegradable, throw the peel away. So you've got the knowledge, but you don't have the baggage from the losses. So manage nerves, build confidence, and play freely. I think when you understand the stats, you accept the game for what it is. You know the difference between a learning mindset and a competitive mindset, which is really important, so that your practices and your matches are set up in your mind the right way. Plus, when you understand that you do the work and good things will happen, you just don't know when. These understandings that you've gotten from here do build confidence in the players, because there's a way forward. I understand why every point's important. And even if I'm losing, I'm going to keep fighting for every point. Now, when you fight for every point, you get better. There's no question about it. And that builds confidence. And ultimately, the more confidence you have, the more freely you play. And coaches and parents and players, you can teach this through the way you speak to yourself and the way you practice. And when you get these negative thoughts in your head, which are going to come, doesn't matter who you are, rather than giving them anchors and say, oh, I can't believe my forehand is so bad today, and I've been practicing and that doesn't work, and you start to build a story, you start to give these negative thoughts roots, and then they stick in your head. When you get a negative thought, say, okay, but don't stay there. Let it go. Let it go. And I want to be much more curious in this match. I want to be a powerful athlete in this match. And so even with negative thoughts, I'll let them go and keep focusing on being a powerful athlete. Or I'm going to keep focusing on, hitting my forehand, whatever it is, and learn to talk to yourself in the right way. And when you're losing, accept, hey, maybe it's not looking good today, but I still want to gather as many points as I can. I still want to try some things in this match to see if I can turn it around. And I think you start to build a healthy mindset this way. As I said, if you've got your phone, just take this, and this will send you through to the 4-Step Reset, free download, and you're welcome to it. So otherwise, I can send a link for this if you can't gather it from here. And I'm sure we can get that to you. The other thing is, if you're interested, you can join my monthly help group. It's the Locker Room Masterclass. Just email me on this email address, and we can talk about it. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions now.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate it. I scanned the QR code with my phone successfully, and I actually just copy pasted the link in the chat, so you all can just click that if your phone doesn't, work for some reason. But mine worked very quickly. So got some nice questions here, and thanks again So let's see. Well, Audrey in the beginning said that she was really looking forward to the presentation from Minnesota. So hello to you. Already said thanks for your excellent presentation. Learning a lot as always. Great stuff. And then a comment from Rockchild who says, I feel you have to give yourself the grace to make mistakes and not beat yourself up when you have a bad match. I'm sure you'd agree, David.
Oh, 100%. I like the word grace. It's a lovely word.
Yeah, it really is. And then Kimba says, thank you for the presentation. Greetings from Jakarta, Indonesia. So great to see you. It's cool.
They're up late.
Yeah, very cool.
Early.
Yeah, right. Worldwide, it's cool. Christopher says, sometimes you have to learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Often in tennis.
Yeah, 100%. And then Brian, hey, Brian, again, good question here. Currently, my biggest mental game issue is fear of mistakes that prevents me from accelerating during forehands and second serves. So any thoughts on that, David?
I mean, ask yourself this question. How well has this been working for you? And, clearly not that well. So be curious as to what would happen if you took mistakes as part of learning how to do these things better. So I wonder what would happen if I played a match and didn't care about mistakes. In other words, a learning mindset match. I'm going to go into this and I'm going to hit my serve and I'm going to accelerate my forehand, and I'm just curious as to what will happen, and see that, and you'll get feedback then as to how you feel while you're doing this. But you need to prepare before match to do this. If you've got to really steel yourself before match and say, today is going to be different. It's not worked for me the other way, and today I'm going to make sure it's different. I'm not going to make sure it's different and therefore I should win. It's going to be different, and I'm curious as to what the results will be. Because so many people come away from what they've set out to do because the bottom line in their head is, I will do this as long as I win. And no, I will do this, and I'm curious to find out what happens.
Yeah, very important distinction there. I like that a lot. And I just want to add too, with my experience, with my second serve, I actually had that same problem where, I wasn't accelerating. And then my coach, he mentioned that, it's just have that mindset and remind yourself before you hit your second serve to go for it, to accelerate, have that as a cue, because, if you don't accelerate, then oftentimes the result is worse than if you did, because, you're just going to miss, you're going to hit it slow and either get attacked or like miss it in the net. So that was just something that helped me, just to like remind myself before I hit my second serve. But yes. And it's part of that, like not having fear slide that you mentioned too, being brave in a sense. So let's see, another question here. Rockchild, is it possible to be too focused in a match to the point that it stifles the mental game and shot making? If so, what recommendations would you give to guard against this occurring?
I would argue that if you think you're too focused, you're not. Because when you're totally focused, you're in the flow. And when you're in the flow, there's no thinking. You're just playing on automatic pilot, which is where you want to get to. And, the problem for all players is when they slip out of that flow and start to think. And if you're thinking, I'm too focused, I mean, maybe the word you might be looking here is too intense. And yes, definitely too intense is going to stifle the mental game, because it's going to be too much like, come on, you can do this. I want to, today's my day. And remember, tennis is a very relaxed game. You have to be loose to play good tennis. So if this intensity is leading to tightness, then I'd say, think in your mind, where am I feeling tight? Yeah, well, in my shoulder. Okay. All right. In my forearm. And try to actually loosen your body. Because if you loosen your body, and when you're hitting the ball, you can say, oh, I'm feeling it in my shoulder. See if you can loosen that shoulder and get loose again. But generally, when people are too focused or too intense, they stiffen up, and that becomes the problem and why they don't play that well. So I would venture to say that here it's maybe about being maybe too intense. But certainly, if you're thinking I'm too focused, you're not in the flow. And yes, you want to try and relax more about things, which again I'd say starts physically in loosening up. That's why you see players so often doing this, bouncing up and down their feet. It's all to try and get the body more loose. And if the body loosens up, it's easier for the mind to loosen up. Mindset is also very much to do with body language. It's very hard to have, very good body language and feel bad. Just like it's very hard to feel good if you've got bad body language. The mind and the body have to be congruent for things to work well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, great stuff, obviously. But I remember when you mentioned that Gigi Fernandez, who won a bunch of Grand Slams, she said that her mental game coach, well, I guess advisor Jim Lear, told her to try to act like she was having fun. I think, and I think that eventually kind of helped her, because, like you said, it's kind of hard to, if you're to act one way and think the other. So
with young players, more of my mindset work is done through the body. I haven't practiced walking on the court looking good, between points, getting the shoulders back, standing up straight again. If you look at top players, they all walk around, with really, wide shoulders and very, very upright. Yeah, they're incredible. They're relaxed with it, but I mean, they've got a strut about them, and they've learned that helps them stay in a positive mindset. You cannot have bad body language and good mindset. It does not happen. You need to have good body language, and that way you give yourself a mind to have your mind a chance to be better. So, with young players, I always start with the body language to get to their minds.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Kimba asks, how to make player more confident and become a good problem solver while in a match. Is it related to exercise frequency, or the practice material requires a lot of repetition?
I mean, I think this comes back to what I said about competency, and the problem solving is to teach players to become curious. The moment a player becomes curious, they are starting to learn how to have a learning mindset. So, if you're a coach or parents, like, okay, well, ask the kid, are you happy to, are you curious about how you get better? Okay, yes. Well, one of the ways you get better is to become curious yourself when you're playing matches. And curiosity means that when things aren't going well, try different things to see what happens. But also, you do need the repetition to be competent as a tennis player, because it's all very well to say, I want to be mentally tough. But if you can't rally 10 backhands cross court in a row, it doesn't matter how mentally tough you are. If you're missing every third ball because you're not good enough yet, and I say yet because, whatever point you are as a player, the best players have been through that point at some point in their career. So if you're 17 and got a UTR of 11.5, Roger Federer might have been an 11.5 when he was 14, but he was an 11.5 at one point and got better from there. So wherever you are, if you're 7 UTR, Roger Federer would have been that, Swiatek would have been that, Sabalenka would have been that at some point in their career. And they went on to be better. So wherever you are, go on and become better. And that does come with repetition and getting more and more competent.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And then just another one. Does mental strength have anything to do with self-confidence during a match?
Yeah, I mean, you build both. None of this is you know you're not born with this. You're born with some resilience and some with a bit more than others, but everybody has to learn how to become mentally strong. That every top player on the planet that's ever been will talk about their journey and the things that changed their mind, which then led them to do great things. So, this is kind of like, the self-confidence needs to come from the idea that I know I can get better and I'm going to keep getting better until I crack this. And bear in mind with tennis, when you crack it, you'll find that you got more things to crack. Whatever you think cracking it is, just keep going until, get confidence from the fact that you're not going to give up, that you're going to keep working at it until you get to wherever it is you want to get to. And along that journey, you'll become mentally strong. But the confidence people lose confidence when they don't believe they can anymore. But it's not, don't think about believing you can in terms of winning matches. Believe that you can in terms of getting better. Because the better you get, trust me, the more matches you'll win. And that's both mentally and game. You need both. You need to keep getting better at both. How well you play and the mind that you put to it.
Right. So you want to become a crack addict. But I mean, solving problems wise. Sorry.
Yeah.
I have the worst jokes. I apologize.
No, that's good.
Thank you. Christopher, manage nerves, build confidence, play freely. Which of these three comes first?
I think in the order that they're in. Once you learn to manage your nerves and it's like me getting on that roller coaster. Once you learn to manage what you're about to do, that builds confidence, and the more confidence you have, the freer you'll play. Hence, they're in that order.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh, by the way, David, sorry, I just want to double check. I know we're almost at 1. So do you need to stop at 1? There are more questions, but if you have to go
I
more.
can keep going a while.
Okay, awesome. Appreciate it. Let's see. Abhinav, is consistency dependent on the mental side? I think you kind of touched upon that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's both.
It's both,
you got to put the hours on court, but mentally you got to do it with a learning mindset. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're gonna burn out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. So this is an interesting one, which is a stat that I was surprised about. But although I talked to Arena Sabalenka's biomechanics coach, and he kind of dived into why that's the case in terms of like the different style of games, I guess. But the question is, what suggestions would you give Iga Swiatek that might help her beat Helena Ostapenko for the first time? Do you think it's more of a mental problem for her or actual match strategies?
I'd say at the start, it's a mental problem. She beats a lot of players that Jelena doesn't beat. She's achieved more in the game so far, anyway, than Jelena has. Definitely certain players' game styles match up differently, and clearly Jelena's a game style that she doesn't like. I do think that, and this is where I'd say is both mental and practice, is I do think that when she plays against Jelena, she has to make more statements. And that means getting mentally prepared that she's going to go after a few more balls early in a rally, or even, off return a serve, and really try to put some fear into Jelena early on. and to go out there with a mindset that I'm going to frighten this girl today. And again, curious, if I really frighten her, I wonder what will happen. I mean, tactically, I do think she's probably going to have to work her second serve a bit more, and just hold Jelena off her a little better off her second serve, because I think that puts her in a lot of trouble early in points when she's serving. So it's and I, again, curiously, I'd say, what happens if she hit a lot of 3/4 first serves and made a huge percentage of first serves, and didn't give her that many cracks at a second serve. So those are slight tactical as well. So I don't think there's, one answer to this, but I think it's mentally is how she thinks about it, and the attitude to which she goes on the court with, and then maybe tactically try a couple of things and see what happens, because if she hits a lot of 3/4 first serves, what would happen? I don't know. She doesn't, and neither does Jelena until it's done. And that's why I say curiosity is a really big part of staying healthy mentally for tennis.
Yeah, that's, I mean, when watching the women's matches, especially, I mean, some of those second serve returns are just absolutely lethal. So I definitely agree with you to at least try the 3/4 first serve out. Brian says, thanks, David. Planning to try that tomorrow in my next match. Awesome.
Good luck, and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely do that, Brian. Leslie, how to build a mental game during the match without negative internal gibberish with the mind?
Well, first thing is accept that the negative internal gibberish will be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's what do you do with that? Well, as much as possible, let it go. Now, when you first start letting it go, this is the hard part, and this is where the discipline has to be. There is, it'll go, and it'll almost be like circular, like this. It'd be going like this, and it's very hard to get rid of. You have to keep getting rid of it. But slowly but surely, every time you get rid of it and fill your mind with something positive, the positive will stay there longer and longer, as long as you keep getting rid of the negative. Let it go. And that's why meditation works for players, because what is meditation? Letting thoughts come and go. Try not to focus on any thoughts. And it's difficult. But you want to try to take that meditative attitude in your mind, which is, the negative thoughts come, the gibberish is that, no, today is different, go. No, today is different, go. Today, I'm going to be strong. Today, I'm going to be calm. No, you're not. Blah, blah. No, go. Today, I'm going to be calm. Today, I'm going to get rid of this. And you have to go through this process. But over time, you get really good at letting them go, and the positive stuff staying there. And every player has this challenge to more or lesser extent. And, some of it's to do with pressure. The more pressure that's there, the more people panic and stuff comes in their head. But the very best players in the world, it takes so much pressure before the gibberish starts to enter their heads. They've practiced it so much, and they've gotten so good at it that it takes an enormous amount of pressure to stimulate negativity in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's powerful. Fascinating. Awesome. Thanks. Rachel, hey Rachel, I play worse when people are watching. Any advice?
Great question. I'd ask this: how often do you watch a match really intently and think a lot about the people that are playing in front of you, and think and watch intently at what they're doing, being emotionally involved with what they're doing, and totally focused on them playing? I mean, if you do that, you're one of a kind. Most people are watching and they're not watching. You think they're standing there. The question is, I play worse when people are standing around looking in my direction. Because honestly, all of them will be looking at me, go, oh, that was a nice shot. So what are we having for dinner tonight?
Yeah.
Are we going for coffee for later? They're talking about all sorts of things. They have absolutely zero interest in what you're doing. You're giving them way too much credit that they are not watching you there. They're standing there almost with vacant eyes. Occasionally, if you have a really good point, they go, oh, wow, that was great. And then it's like, should we go on that bike ride tomorrow? I mean, or, I wonder what we should eat tonight. That's what the reality of what happens. And Rachel, I'm sure, is exactly the same. So don't think that you are different from other people. They're the same. And so when you have this mind, oh my God, they're watching, just remember and say, no, they're not. They're just standing there. I could put statues there. I could put dogs and cats there, because that's almost as much attention as you're going to get playing.
That's
Hope
true.
that
I mean,
helps.
yeah, definitely. I mean, usually I'll watch a point, then I'll check Spurs scores and then start crying. That's my life this year.
And you can't see anything more through the tears.
Yeah, they're almost all gone. I have no more left. Good stuff. Let's see, Leslie. Single-handed backhand mental props. I don't know, solutions maybe for intense returns and control of direction. So maybe having trouble mentally with a single-handed backhand and how to improve that from a mental standpoint.
I mean, this is impossible to answer without seeing the backhand and seeing what's happening there. But if you can do it in practice, then it's again about getting curious about, okay, what is it that I do in practice that's different in matches? And when you hit it in practice, really try to feel, because tennis is very much about feel what it feels like. And then in matches, rather than worrying about whether it's going over or not. So today I'm just going to be curious about what it feels like and try to get the feeling the same as when I'm in practice. And when you hit it and feeling, oh, it's much stiffer in a match. Okay, well, let's see if I lose some. I'm hitting it much later in a match. Okay, let's see what happens now. And get the feedback as to what goes wrong in a match that maybe is not going wrong for you in practice. But get curious about finding the right feeling in matches. That's, given that in practice, the backhand's okay.
I love that. That's fantastic. I'm going to try that in my next match for a certain shot. Martin, do you recommend a mobile app for meditation for athletes or tennis players? Headspace, for example. That's a good one.
Well, I mean, Headspace is the official app for the ATP. I think all of these things are like anything in life. And the reason why there's more than one app is different people connect with different things. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I don't meditate because every time I lift weights, I'm focused so much on my breath. I'm focused on imagining the muscles breaking down and the blood flowing through them. Every weight training session for me is meditation. And I also know players who say that when I go running, I don't listen to music or anything. I just run. And that, if you're running, in the end, it's just all about breath and keeping going. And there's not much thought in your head. And they say, well, that's their meditation. So how you meditate is got to be up to you. But yeah, Headspace is the one that the ATP use. But I'm not advocating any one over another, because there are people who would hate Headspace and people love it. And there's so many apps out there because people connect with things differently.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I tried Headspace and Calm, and for whatever reason, I like Calm better. But I mean, just try them, try several, and see what you like there.
Yeah. If you're uncomfortable with it, don't force it. Go and try something
Mhm.
else, because the discomfort is telling you, I'm not connecting with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Audrey, that is why I'm in love with the game of tennis, because there's always something to crack. Once you master one thing, there's always another tackle next. Feel the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that to players. You don't know your potential until your career is over. Because while you're going, you're always trying to get better. And trying to get better means you've got something else to crack. So brilliant statement. Thank you, Audrey.
Yeah, thanks. Good looking drink there as well.
Yeah, I need
Rachel.
one.
Yeah, same. I needed like 3. Rachel, thanks. Love that perspective.
Yeah.
Good,
No
good.
more are you going to worry about people watching you. You're going to love it. You're going to
Yeah, I
love
love
it
that.
because it's like having lots of teddy bears there watching you. That's how much I'll be thinking. Head teddy bears, but they're nice and cuddly, and they're there to see you do well.
Yeah, agreed. That's a great way to think of it. David, I think this would be a good place to stop. And wonderful questions, great presentation. Really loved it. I guess maybe to end is what's the next action step that you want the audience to take after watching the presentation and hearing the answers to the questions?
Yeah, I mean, go download the 4-Step Reset. I'd say that, because it's a great start to managing your mind between points. And then just connect with me. Send me an email, and I'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested from that point in doing more work with me, then let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thanks.
Everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. I know
Yeah, definitely.
so much going on in the world. It's a real privilege that people take time out of their day to listen.
Yeah, I agree. We're definitely grateful for everyone's presence, including yours, David. So thanks so much to you and everyone. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot. I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch and apply the lessons learned from this one. So thanks so much. And yeah, I hope we connect again soon and do some other stuff. So thank you.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Take care.